Welcome to football's golden oldies from the Toll House in Lancaster. It wasn't Liverpool, it was Liddellpool. Liverpool fans might disagree with the headlines. Nobody better has played for the club. Not Gerrard, not Dalglish, not Salah. But I don't. This man was a phenomenon alongside Bill Shankly. The photograph shows Billy Liddell's shot beating Blackburn Rovers goalkeeper Harry Leyland in 1957. By the time I give this talk, Mo Salah will have overtaken the Anfield legend with his goals, who had a strange run and a 19-inch neck. Other people with a large neck size were Joe Lewis, 17, Joe Frazier, 17 and a half, Sonny Liston, 17 and a half, and George Foreman, 18. And George has just died now, but they couldn't compare with Billy Liddell. Billy was a Liverpool icon. One of the greatest to represent Liverpool, Scotland and Great Britain, and only one of 7 to be immortalised by a bench outside Anfield. Billy Liddell journeyed from a small village in Scotland to become a Liverpool icon via the cockpit as a Royal Air Force navigator in World War II. Billy spent a decade playing for Scotland and has the honour, along with Stanley Matthews, of being one of the only 2 men to represent a Great Britain 11 more than once. Billy was a true sportsman and a consummate professional who was never booked or sent off in his entire footballing career. Town Hill, his home. William Beveridge Liddell was born on January 10, 1922 in Town Hill, see the photograph, near Dunfermline, the eldest of 6 children of coal miner James and wife Montgomery. Liddell experienced austerity and poverty, with his family having to exist on bread, kale and salt porridge. His parents saw Billy had developed an interest in football, so, despite financial difficulties, they bought him a pair of football boots as a Christmas present when he was 7. Aged 8, he played for the school team, which had an average age of 10. William Beveridge Liddell was on his way. As a pupil at Dunfermline High School, Billy studied chemistry, mathematics, physics, English and 2 other languages, while playing football for local teams and Scotland schoolboys. By the age of 16, Liddell had earned a contract with Lochgelly Violet Football Club and be sought by Liverpool, Hamilton Academicals and Partick Thistle. Liverpool manager George Kay became interested in signing Liddell on the recommendation of the club's Scottish wing half, Matt Busby. Billy signed for Liverpool as an amateur on July 27, 1938 and became a professional in April 1939 on a weekly wage of £3. The far photograph shows his contract running from April 17, 1939 to May 4, 1940, £1 extra for playing in the Central League team and another £1 extra in the first team. Shankly called it a dump. Billy Liddell is without doubt one of the greatest players to ever play for Liverpool. What describes this man? Humility, loyalty, perseverance and kindness. His life and era of football is extinct or on the brink of extinction. Liverpool Football Club does not begin with Bill Shankly had it not been for Billy Liddell. The dump that Shankly labelled Anfield would have been in a much worse state and camped in a lower division. The photograph is of Billy Liddell, centre front row, with the ball at his feet and the 1957-58 Liverpool squad. The first great player at Liverpool was the quote of Johnny Morrissey. Billy was very unfortunate not to have have the array of medals and European Cups that lesser players won in the future. Ronnie Moran used to talk about the old players. He would always say the players he coached were never as good as the ones who had gone before. Any fans today that are not aware of Billy just need to know that the Liverpool team was known as Liddellpool. That name shows the impact he had. He didn't drink or swear. Alan Hansen remembers he played in the 40s and 50s. For him to be remembered today is again a testament to what Billy was all about. Billy was beyond friendliness. He was just awesome, always smiling, always ready to speak to you, always engaging. He was just brilliant. I used to love talking to him whenever we met in the Players' Lounge. Billy was the friendliest and most approachable guy there has ever been at Liverpool. Between Billy Liddell and Ian Callaghan, I think there is a lesson to everyone that plays football on how to conduct themselves. Jimmy Melia recalls, he was amongst the best 5 players that have ever played for Liverpool. A 2-footed player, terrific in the air, 2 great feet, right foot and left foot, it didn't matter. And he was so good at Liverpool, they named the team after him. Tell me another player who did that. Town Hill, a village synonymous with Billy Liddell. Town Hill honoured the man with the Billy Liddell Sports Complex. There stands the Cairn Memorial with a plaque that has the following inscription. William Beveridge Liddell. The garden and memorial cairn are dedicated to the memory of Town Hill born football legend Billy Liddell. Billy began his football career with Kingseat Juveniles, then Lochgelly Violet. He spent his entire professional career with Liverpool Football Club, signing in 1939 and making 534 appearances, scoring 228 goals. Billy was capped 29 times for Scotland, and he was one of only 2 players to appear in the Great Britain team of 1947 and 1955. A true sportsman and a great professional, Billy was never booked or sent off in his entire footballing career. Born Town Hill 1922, died Liverpool 2001. When Billy reached 15, local junior clubs were keen to take Billy, and it was Lochgelly Violet who secured his services, paying him 7 and 6 a match. He spent 1 season with the club, but attracted scouts from Partick Thistle, Hamilton, Manchester City, Arsenal and Liverpool. An interesting aside to the origins of football and rugby in Britain, upon researching Billy, it becomes quite glaring that football is referred to as soccer. Indeed, Billy's autobiography is titled My Soccer Story. War and wartime football. It's hard to imagine that football could exist during the war. The 6 years that engulfed the globe in bloodshed also hosted a lot of unofficial football matches. Other than making it a nightmare to track individual players and their club-hopping traits, the era provided some unusual opportunities for the young men balancing football and fighting a war. Billy had done enough to impress George Kay and was on the brink of breaking into the first-team squad. In September 1939, Britain and France declared war on Germany. An injury to Barry Nieuwenhuis saw a first-team debut for Billy against Preston North End at Anfield. He lined up alongside the man who helped bring him to Merseyside, Matt Busby, and future manager Phil Taylor. 300 fans attended the game to see Billy shine. So impressive was Billy's performance in the 1-0 loss that he was given his professional debut for Liverpool in the Western Division 2 weeks later. Clubs used varying numbers of wartime guests. Liverpool had over 100 guest players during the war. Perhaps the most notable name to don the famous Liverpool red during the war was Bill Shankly. Both both Liddell and Shankly lined up in the same Liverpool side to face Everton in a 4-1 victory at Anfield in May 1942. Reading's Geoffrey Gulliver made 96 appearances for Liverpool, but has no official Liverpool appearances to his name. He's remembered as a player who did not play for the club. Maestro Liddell. The decision to ignore all wartime football and sweep it under the carpet seems very disrespectful to all the players involved. Let's go back to Geoffrey Gulliver to put his contribution into perspective. His wartime appearance tally is just 14 fewer league matches than Luis Suarez played for the club. After the war, Billy made his first appearance for the first team in the Anfield friendly match against Preston. He was then handed his first competitive match during a 7-3 win against Crewe Alexander. His performance was lauded in the press. The star performer was Liddell, not 18. He played at outside left to give a most promising display, his ball control and sense of positioning being features. Billy's first competitive performance also brought with it a goal inside 2 minutes. Billy's fledgling career was attracting attention from further afield. Scottish selectors were soon calling George Kay to ask whether Billy could partake in a wartime international match against England. Scotland produced an emphatic performance with a 5-4 scoreline. 10 minutes was sufficient for this boy to play himself into the critical Hampden Hearts. He scored the equaliser with a lovely timed header, but it was the say he had in the second goal which put him in the maestro class. Liddell did the spade work and Ephraim Dodds finished for what must be one of the greatest goals Hampden has ever seen. Of the 5 goals Scotland scored, Billy scored 1 and assisted 2 on his first Scotland appearance. Billy never spoke about the war. In April 1941, Billy enlisted at RAF Padgate, where he trained and was given his service number, 1523547. Padgate, a suburb of Warrington, was also host to fellow Scottish and Liverpool legend Bill Shankly. Bill left Padgate in 1940, ahead of his RAF war efforts, so the two did not meet. Billy had applied to be a pilot, but he was asked to be a navigator due to his mathematical ability. The fact that Billy was selected as a navigator was of much amusement to the Liddell family, who knew Billy had a terrible sense of direction. Rena, his younger sister, recalls that the family used to point up at planes flying past their house during the war and said, "It's Billy flying in the wrong direction." Billy's official role was in the Navigator Pathfinder Force, RAF Bomber Command and Coastal Command from 1942 to 1946. The navigators were the cream in the Pathfinders, and the Air Operator's Certificate meant that, beside being a brilliant pilot, Billy and the rest of his squadron were master navigators. Billy not only held a prestigious role, but was awarded the War Medal, 1939 to 45, and the 1939 to 45 Star, awarded to RAF crew who had served over 60 days service outside Britain. Billy flew to Canada for further navigation training. While there, he played for Toronto Scottish. After 8 months in Canada, he was posted to Perth, just 25 miles from Townhill. This also allowed him the chance to represent some Scottish sides, such as Hearts in August 1943 versus an RAF 11. What would the new season bring? This had been a significant period of Billy's life and set him up for the next 15 years of football that he had ahead of him. The war ended in September 1945 and the maiden First Division match in peacetime was in August 1946. This margin allowed all clubs to get their houses in order. Prior to the 46-47 campaign, Liverpool travelled to Chester in an FA Cup game. Billy's goal after 30 minutes helped Liverpool to a 2-0 win. The press called him the star of the Liverpool attack. The RAF recalled Billy, meaning he missed the club's maiden journey to North America. So in July 1946, Billy married his fiancée, Phyllis Farrance. RAF friend George Telford was best man. The two were married in Garston Park Methodist Church. The 46-47 campaign was a dramatic one for George Kay's Liverpool side as he orchestrated a first top-flight title in nearly 25 years and a 5th overall, with the average home gate topping 40,000 for the first time in the team's history. The season began with a 1-0 win at Sheffield United, then a home defeat to Middlesbrough by the same score. September brought Chelsea to Anfield for what would be remembered as a milestone moment with an amazing scoreline in Liddell and Liverpool history. The burning stub arrives at Anfield. Chelsea hosted former Everton forward Tommy Lawton in their ranks. The Liverpool boss made 4 changes. Out went Cyril Sidlaw, Eddie Spicer, Len Carney and Bob Pridey. In came Charlie Ashcroft, Willie Fagan, Bob Paisley and Billy Liddell. No one in the 50,000 strong crowd could have anticipated a treat with no fewer than 11 goals scored at a packed Anfield. The home side display was electric. Billy scored direct from a corner in the 2nd minute. A brace from Bill Jones and a Willie Fagan goal put Liverpool 4 up at half-time. During the break, reported the Echo, a number of youths got into the ground by scaling the wall on Anfield Road, while thousands more waited outside Anfield listening. Jack Barmer and Billy scored soon after the break to put Liverpool 6-0 up. In the 55th minute, Chelsea scored. They soon made up for lost time, finding the net 3 times in quick succession. 6-4, with 20 minutes left on the clock. Chelsea pressed forward, but Willie Fagan notched another. It ended 7-4. The police could not contain the swarms of young supporters who ran onto the pitch to mob their heroes at the final whistle. A week later, forward Albert Stubbins joined from Newcastle United for £13,000. He would go on to score 83 goals in 178 appearances for Liverpool. He had a shot so venomous he broke the wrist of Leeds United's John Hodgson that season when the keeper saved his penalty. His famous diving header in the snow against Birmingham City following a superb free kick from Liddell. Personalities featured, 70 of them. The cover of the Beatles' Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band album gave lots of fun for those looking to spot which famous personalities had made the cut. The likes of Karl Marx, Bob Dylan, Laurel and Hardy and Marilyn Monroe were included in the 70 feature, and there were also some lesser known faces from the sporting world. Boxer Sonny Liston is easy to identify. Swimming star and Tarzan man Johnny Weissmuller perhaps less so, and then there is the footballer. Released in the year after England's World Cup win, you might have expected Bobby Moore or maybe even Eusebio or Pelé, the biggest names in world football at the time, to figure on the cover of the world's biggest band's latest masterpiece. Instead, it was Albert Stubbins, the Burning Stub, who featured as the sole representative of the beautiful game, his smiling face peeking out from behind Marlene Dietrich, and he surely would have caught out many trying to name them all. A Liverpool great from the Post-war era, Stubbins was apparently a John Lennon choice for the cover, although none of the Fab Four can be said to have been massive football fans. In fact, Lennon's reason for choosing him for the cover was said to be that the name had amused him as a child. The famous cover. Let's look at this piece of history and attempt to pick out some famous faces. The girl standing to the side of George Harrison, who you can see pictured in red, wearing a yellow suit, looking at her over the right shoulder, is the smiling face of Albert Stubbins, the man responsible for scoring the goal that handed the First Division title to Liverpool. The smiling man with the yellow hat behind Albert is Oliver Babe Hardy. To his right, wearing a black bowler, is the comedian from England, Stan Laurel. Anyone who bought this album would have spent hours, if not weeks and months, to identify all the faces. The man of principle, who would not cheat to win. By December 1946, Liverpool sat 2 points behind Wolves, having played a match less. The title race was heating up between the teams. Liverpool, Wolves captained by Ellesmere-Port-born Stan Cullis, Matt Busby's Man United, and Billy's English counterpart Stanley Matthews' Stoke City, prior to his transfer to Blackpool in May 1947. 7 games to go. Liverpool were 5th in the table. Sunderland home 1-0, Stubbins. Aston Villa away 2-1, Watkinson and Fagan. Manchester United at home 1-0, Stubbins. Charlton away 3-1, hat-trick for Stubbins. Brentford home 1-1, Pridey. Arsenal away 2-1, Barmer and an own goal. Wolves at home 2-1, Barmer and Stubbins. This observation was not in Billy Liddell's book. After half-time, Albert Stubbins said to his 2 wing halves, "When I am stood on the centre spot, being marked by Stan Cullis and Billy Wright, hit a ball 20 yards over my head, as I think I have the pace to beat Cullis and Wright." This happened in the second half. Albert could hear Cullis and Wright panting as they tried to catch him. They could have tripped him, pulled his shirt. Stan Cullis said after the game, when the press asked him why he hadn't done that, "I would be forever known as a cheat who won the championship for Wolves by underhand means. I wasn't prepared to do that." Stan Cullis was a man of principle. And as a reminder, when England played Germany in Germany before the war started, the ambassador came into the dressing room and said, "When you line up, you will give the Nazi salute." Well, a voice from the back, "You can count me out," and that was Stan Cullis. So they dropped him from the team and put another man in. Liverpool now had to wait for 2 weeks. Stoke City had to travel to Sheffield United. A win would win them the league title, but they lost 2-1. Neil Franklin was always convinced Stoke would have won the title if the great Stanley Matthews had not been sold to Blackpool. Final league table. The acquisition of Stubbins for such a fee illustrates the importance the board placed on Albert. His role in the team was to score goals. The board selected the team in those days, and their selection and instructions centred around Billy Liddell feeding Albert Stubbins the ball, and it worked. Billy Liddell was the mainstay of a side where Albert Stubbins scored over 25 goals in each of his first 2 seasons, finishing as the club's top scorer in both. If Stan Cullis had cheated, Wolves would have 57 points, Liverpool 56 points. Not surprising, as it was Cullis who refused to give the Nazi salute. a worrying trend. During this season, Billy had suffered at least 3 concussions. Against Sunderland, treacherous conditions saw the pitch turn all but unplayable, and the leather ball soaked subsequently turned it into the proverbial medicine ball, as it was often called. Billy was tracking his man back and used his head to block a cross, but was emphatically floored and concussed. After the magic sponge treatment, he was deemed fit to play on, donning a large head bandage. It was commented how unsteady Billy became on a boggy pitch. Then a further stoppage occurred after his bandage came loose from yet another headed clearance. Bob Paisley was later floored by heading the incomprehensibly heavy and dangerous ball. The decision to continue playing may have had unknown long-term health issues for Billy. Billy McConnell, the mastermind behind the trips to North America and the purchase of 6 new-build semi-detached clubhouses on Westfield Avenue and Greystone Road in Broad Green, less than 15 minutes from Anfield by car, which meant that Billy and Phyllis had a place of their own, alongside the budding families of Willie Fagan, Phil Taylor, Eddie Spicer, Albert Stubbins and Bob Paisley. It was a wise investment. Billy McConnell discharged himself from hospital to watch the match against Wolves. It was his final one, as illness sadly killed him the following summer. The tragic suddenness of his death may be eased by the fact that he was able to witness the final act of this theatrical campaign. Season 49-50. The Reds entered the season off the back of a mediocre campaign where they finished 12th. They had won the fewest number of home matches in the league, just 5 in 21 attempts, but still managed to maintain impressive crowds, averaging over 44,000 for the season. Billy played in 42 of a possible 52 matches, testament to his role that year, though he came second in the Sportsman of the Year for 1949, behind 1948 Olympic double silver and World Championship gold medalist, cyclist Reg Harris. Billy was, of course, still part-time. He would train full-time during July and then only Tuesdays and Thursdays throughout the season, while maintaining his accountancy job. The club trusted he could juggle his accountancy and fitness, and he never let the club down. It was to be George Kay's last full season with the Reds. His importance to Billy and Liverpool was prodigious. The Manchester-born right half had captained the West Ham side in the first ever Wembley FA Cup final in 1923, where they were defeated 2-0 by his former side Bolton Wanderers. The match became known as the White Horse Final, due to Billy the Horse having to enter the field of play as 10,000 supporters spilled onto the pitch due to overcrowding. Kay fought with the British Army during the Great War, which served as a 4-year interruption to his football career. He fell ill during a tour of Spain, which caused his retirement for football, while in his mid-30s in 1926. FA Cup road is never easy. First up was a drab affair, an 0-0 draw at Ewood Park against Blackburn Rovers. In the replay, Billy was fundamental in dragging the Reds across the line. Coming from behind, Liverpool won 2-1. Fourth round saw Exeter City come to Anfield. The rain played havoc with the playing surface, causing a soggy affair, but goals from Barron, Fager and Payne saw the Reds through to face Stockport County. Supporters flocked to Edgeley Park. The plan to mark Billy out of the game was a mark of respect. Each time he got the ball, he was swiftly scythed. Billy's wing wizardry set up Willie Fagan to score. Albert Stubbins made it 2, before a consolation stop goal ended the game 2-1. 3 days following the birth of his twins, Billy welcomed First Division Blackpool. The away support was dampened when a Liddell corner fell to Willie Fagan, who scored. Liddell and Payne switched wings and Jimmy set up Billy on the edge of the box, who curled the ball into the top right corner. The news over the tannoy that Everton had also progressed to the semi-final was met with cheers as the prospect of an Old Merseyside final loomed, but it was red versus blue in the semi-final instead. Merseyside travelled to Manchester and Liverpool returned to the scene of their 1947 FA Cup semi-final heartache at Main Road. The match was played on the same day as the Grand National, meaning it was the festival day for Merseyside sport. Hope to win the ballot. Liverpool went into the match as favourites and the opening goal came through Jimmy Payne's wing play. His cross found Paisley, who lofted the ball towards goal. Liddell jumped with the Toffees goalkeeper George Burnett, causing him to lose the flight of the ball, and it looped into the net. Over 70,000 supporters attended and the red contingent went ballistic as Liverpool went in to break 1-0 up. The second half saw Billy score one of his most iconic goals. Turning Eddie Wainwright inside out, Billy took the ball past him into the box before an emphatic finish that all but secured a passage to Wembley. Liverpool lived up to pre-match predictions and the final whistle was greeted with an explosion of excitement. The Reds were going to Wembley for the first time to face Arsenal. They could enter the spectacle confident of beating the North Londoners. That same season, they'd already overcome them 2-1 at Highbury and 2-0 at Anfield, where a little goal helped claim victory. The first Wembley visit in Liverpool's second FA Cup final was because the Crystal Palace Stadium had hosted the 1914 final, as it had done for every year since 1895. Interest was so high that over 100,000 Liverpool supporters applied for final tickets. Then they would go into a ballot. Disappointment for the Reds. Those lucky enough to be successful in the ballot travelled by car and train for their first glimpse of the Twin Towers through steamed-up windows on a rainy April afternoon. Phil Taylor had the pleasure of leading the Reds out at Wembley, alongside the man whose shoes he would fill one day, George Kay. It was to be a day of frustration and pain for Billy. Arsenal highlighted him as the danger man. Right half Alex Forbes was tasked with marking Billy out of the game. Forbes performed a hatchet job on Billy for 90 solid minutes. Any time Liddell was within a sniff of the ball, Forbes hacked him to the ground. A Reg Lewis goal after 20 minutes put Arsenal ahead. The start of the second half saw a Liddell cross fall to Stubbins, who failed to convert. After 60 minutes, Reg Lewis scored his second goal for Arsenal. Despite more Liddell-inspired waves of heroic attacks, no further goals were scored, and Arsenal lifted the trophy 2-0. This was, of course, in the heyday of FA Cup importance. Billy had been the object of rough handling, and his wife Phyllis was asked to help Billy change after the match due to his condition after extremely rough treatment. Journalist Brian Glanville questioned Arsenal's tactics, saying Billy was so badly injured he couldn't put his jacket on the following days. When the Reds returned from Wembley, they were greeted by thousands of fans as they stood on the balcony of Liverpool Town Hall, and all the players stamped their supporters on a huge day of pride for the club, regardless of the loss. Colombia beckons. In 1950, Billy Liddell became one of many players to be offered a transfer to Colombia by agents representing Independiente Santa Fe and Club Deportivo Los Millonarios. The clubs belonged to the D Mayor, unrecognised by FIFA because of a dispute between the league and the domestic governing body. Restrictions in England limited the weekly wage to £12 in the season and £10 during the summer, and also impeded a player's ability to transfer to another club, which caused much discontent in British soccer until the system was reformed in the 1960s. Billy chose to reject the contract offer, reportedly estimated to be £12,000. His wife Phyllis later attributed the decision to club loyalty and the recent birth of twins. Billy later said that the decision would have been more challenging had it not been for the births. Many footballers did agree contracts, including Alfredo Di Stefano, Neil Franklin, who was known as England's greatest defender, Charlie Mitten and Hector Real. George Kay resigned in January 1951 because of declining health and was replaced by former guest player Don Welsh. Before Kay's resignation, Liverpool failed to record a win in 10 matches between September and November. Billy ended the sequence with a goal that beat Chelsea 1-0. Underperforming Liverpool are relegated. Liverpool again underperformed in the 51-52 season, in which Liddell scored a goal against Huddersfield Town, described by the media as the shot of a lifetime, and reported in detail by the Liverpool Echo. When awarded a free kick outside the penalty area, Liverpool opted to have Kevin Barron take it instead of Billy, as was normal. Barron passed it to Liddell, who struck the ball with such force that the shot surprised the Huddersfield defence and goalkeeper Harry Mills and silenced spectators. Billy still played as a winger and finished the season with 19 goals in 40 league appearances. But Liddell was playing in a very average team. In fact, Liverpool only avoided relegation in the 52-53 season by defeating Chelsea in the club's final fixture in April 1953. Liverpool's decline culminated in relegation to the second division in the 53-54 season, finishing with 28 points to end a fabulous 50 seasons in the top division. The club had conceded 97 goals and failed to record an away win in 24 consecutive matches over a period of 14 months. Despite the club's dissent, Liddell elected to stay rather than accept a transfer to another club. The prospect of a second relegation rather than promotion dominated the club's thoughts at one stage in the 54-55 season, yet a productive partnership formed. Liverpool Echo called Liddell inspirational. The far photograph shows Liverpool's final season, 53-54, in the first division, and the near photograph shows their first season in the second division in 54-55, finishing in 11th place. Their record in the second division was 55-56, third, 56-57, third, 57-58, fourth, 58-59, fourth, 59-60, third, 60-61, third, 61-62, first. And finally, when the great Bill Shankly arrived in 59, they got back to their rightful place at the summit of the game. In 54-55, Liddell moved to centre forward, scoring 30 goals in 40 appearances, one more than teammate John Evans. Billy scored Liverpool's solitary goal in a record 9-1 loss to Birmingham on December 11th, 1954. Heart of pure gold. Which player in the English League has his club's name incorporated into his own and is still flying proudly in 2024, over 80 years since Billy Liddell signed for Liverpool, and was arguably their best ever player? His flag can be seen in the photograph. In October 51, Billy moved his family from Scotland down to Liverpool. Before his father died, James asked Billy if he would look after the family in his absence. He died soon after. Billy put his family in the clubhouse provided for him in 1947 on Westfield Avenue. He had approached the club and asked whether he could purchase the property from them, and then arranged to move his own family to Windsor Road in Tewborough, about 5 minutes from Anfield, in the car. The two houses were close to each other, and Billy could comfortably look after his mum and younger siblings, and the club was more than accommodating to help Billy during such a tough time. Final first team game. Billy missed the 59-60 opener in August, but he replaced Lewis Bimpson for the game against Bristol City and scored a brace in a 4-2 win. He retained his place until an injury sustained in September granted Roger Hunt the opportunity to score on his league debut against Scunthorpe. Recurring injury continued to disrupt Billy's season, and damaged knee ligaments in October rendered him unavailable for 4 months. Phil Taylor resigned in December due to deteriorating performances, and was succeeded by Huddersfield's Bill Shankly. After Billy recovered, Shankly selected him for the game against Plymouth Argyle. He played in 10 successive games, scoring his final goal for the club in a 5-1 defeat of Stoke City in March. For the match against Bristol Rovers in April, Bill Shankly favoured an 18-year-old Ian Callaghan, considered by Billy Liddell to be his successor. Ian ultimately broke Billy's appearance record. Billy Liddell's last league game for Liverpool came in the 60-61 season in a 1-0 defeat to Southampton. This match gave him the distinction of being the oldest footballer to play for the club in a post-war senior game at 38 years and 224 days until Kenny Dalglish in 1990. Last game in the Stiffs. After the loss to Southampton, Billy's final match was in the Central League for the reserves at Anfield. Captain Liddell assisting and scoring in a 5-0 victory in front of just 2,000 supporters. When the match finished, a few of the players put Billy on their shoulders and carried him off the pitch. Billy stepped down to the reserves, or the Stiffs as they were often colloquially called, allowed a lot of the budding players an opportunity to witness the great man firsthand. He never displayed any upset or anger that he had been dropped. Instead, leading by example and speaking few but wise words like those uttered to Alan Banks, "All the best, Alan, just go and play your normal game." This would have been a dream for the reserve team manager Joe Fagan, young lads playing alongside their childhood hero. There was an abundance of Liverpool players in the squad. Billy was the oldest of around 55 men, but never sulked that he was being displaced within the first team. Shankly would always welcome him to speak in training, and he made sure his players listened to Billy. "Listen to Billy, lads, he's been there, he's done it all." There were two key reasons that Billy left Liverpool. The most obvious and understandable reason was that when his contract expired in May '61, he was 39 years of age. First testimonial for almost 40 years. To recognise Billy Liddell's 22-year service, Liverpool organised a testimonial in September between the club and an international 11 at Anfield. The big day of Liddell appreciation came in September 1960. The first testimonial at Anfield for a former Red since Jackie Sheldon's testimonial in 1922. Close to 40,000 packed out Anfield on a wretched evening that followed a rain-soaked day. Stanley Matthews scuppered the pre-match plans as he failed to attend the match. Stan had form for failing to attend charity matches and testimonials, as he knew his name would help sell tickets for the benefactor. He was seemingly happy to let everyone down at the last minute. One winger who did respect his invitation was Tom Finney, the then retired North End player who turned Ronnie Moran inside out all match. Finney and Liddell soon swapped positions, and it was Billy's turn to run right on the wing. When Ronnie Moran turned to the fans and shrugged his shoulders after being beaten by Finney and Liddell for the umpteenth time, he received a huge roar of approval. Billy had led both sides out to a fantastic reception as the Clan MacLeod Pipe Band performed some traditional Scottish music before the game. No sooner had the bagpipes been packed away than Billy scored at his favourite Cop end. But Dave Hickson and Alan Accord helped Liverpool notch 4 goals, and goalkeeper Bert Slater remained the villain of the piece by saving all Billy's attempts to score. Immortal of football, a very rare accolade. Billy gave a final speech to the fans, but the rarely seen emotional Liddell was close to tears as he finished his short speech to his adoring fans. The players formed a guard of honour as he waved to all 4 sides of the ground and left the pitch for the final time. A testimonial is now often played in support of a charity that the player would like their supporters to donate to. In this era, the testimonial would help set the player up for retirement and was a huge honour. This match brought Billy a new home, and the £6,340 received from ticket sales was the equivalent of over 6 years' wages. The appreciation of his years of service tangibly stood in Chequers Gardens in the Levy suburb of Aberth. The Liverpool Echo produced a giant souvenir edition paper of Billy's career highlights. He received a leather-bound copy of the paper, which he proudly kept as a keepsake. The front page reads, "Billy Liddell, the city salutes you as a player, a gentleman, a sportsman, and the finest clubman the game ever knew. The plaudits at Anfield tonight will come from Liverpudlian and Evertonian alike. They share affection for you as one of the few immortals of the game, one whose deeds and courage will be talked about for generations. This may not be your last game, but is the one which will mark officially your impending retirement from the sport you have adorned. It will leave you in no doubt about the regard in which you are held." Liddell passed the torch to Shankly. Liverpool went on to achieve the riches Billy would never even thought possible for his Liverpool team to have dreamed of. Bill Shankly was in no doubt the catalyst. In fact, tried to pick any combination of superlatives to describe his importance to the club. It is both fitting and upsetting that Billy's legacy could spill all the way over to Bill Shankly's boys, but painfully unlucky how close he was to the future success of the club. It would perhaps have been more fitting for Billy to reach the round figure of 40 and score a crucial goal or play in one last important match that helped Liverpool return to the top. The send-off Liddellpool received was as much for the fans as it was for Billy. They were all waving goodbye to the man who had defined the club in its most painful playing era. The emotional goodbye from Billy was so unassuming, yet it showed to everyone how much the club meant to him and how happy he was to hand it over to the next custodian. Liddellpool was no more. It was time for Liverpool to stand alone and be reborn. His international career. Billy Liddell made his debut for Scotland in a 5-4 wartime win over England at Hampden Park, equalising Tommy Lawton's opening goal. He won several more wartime caps. He gained his first full cap against Switzerland, scoring twice in a 3-1 win at Hampden Park on May 15, 1946. Liddell played predominantly as an outside left in competition with Scotland-based Laurie Riley and Willie Ormond. The SFA denied Liddell and his teammates the opportunity to participate in the 1950 World Cup hosted by Brazil because of an earlier decision to sanction involvement as British Home Championship runners-up. The decision meant qualification depended on the final match against England on May 25, 1950, which Scotland lost 1-0, when joint first needed only a draw. Despite pressure from players, the Scottish FA maintained its position. In 1951, Scotland won the home championship, with Liddell scoring twice. His goal against England in a 3-2 win followed a clash of heads with Wilf Mannion that fractured Mannion's cheekbone. For the 1954 World Cup, the SFA decided to authorise World Cup participation regardless of position. After a 3-3 draw with Wales, the SFA omitted Liddell from the starting lineup and he did not accompany the team to Switzerland, where Scotland struggled and lost their 2 matches, 1-0 to Austria and 7-0 to Uruguay. More international games. The team's first manager, Andy Beattie, resigned in protest because of SFA interference in the selection process. Having been overlooked for 4 matches that followed, Liddell was recalled by the SFA after a 7-2 loss to England at Wembley. He played outside left and scored one of Scotland's 3 goals against Portugal on May 4, 1955. His involvement in the tour of Yugoslavia, Austria and Hungary later in the month proved eventful. In a 2-2 draw with Yugoslavia, Billy received a black eye when accidentally punched by goalkeeper Vladimir Bera while attempting a header. He scored his last goal for Scotland in an ill-tempered 4-1 win over Austria, where a brief pitch invasion involving large numbers of supporters reportedly resulted in altercations between players and fans. Late in the match against Hungary, Liddell missed his second penalty for Scotland while they were losing 3-1 to the Golden Team. During his career with Liverpool, Liddell converted 34 of his 41 penalties. Billy gained 2 additional caps representing a Great Britain 11 against the rest of Europe. In 1947 and 1955, he became one of only 2 players, the other being Stanley Matthews, to be twice selected. Life after football. Footballers' lives typically become less hectic and less interesting once they retire. Billy went from the king of the cop to full-time accountant, all the while juggling his justice of the peace, church, Sunday school, Freemasonry, writing and other commitments that he had lined up. The main way that Billy maintained a relationship with football was through testimonial and charity matches. While a real competitive edge was not present, this showed how revered he was due to the calibre of players that requested his presence. The main charity match that will be remembered from Billy's retirement football appearances would be the Ferenc Puskás 11 versus the Billy Liddell 11 in May 1967. South Liverpool Football Club, an amateur team in Liverpool, agreed to host a charity match to raise money for charitable causes in the area and took to attracting some famous football names. Billy, being so involved in charity work, was first port of call to captain the side and help attract some recently retired players to draw in the crowds. Attention was turned to a marquee foreign name. Pelé was approached but was too busy with his Brazilian club Santos. The Brazen Selection Committee chanced sending a request to the 40-year-old Ferenc Puskás, still playing for Real Madrid. Remarkably, he agreed to play. News spread like wildfire. Charities and honours. Billy met Puskás, the Galloping Major as he was known, at Liverpool Airport before some public appearances in support of the charities that the match proceeds would go towards. Over 10,000 supporters crammed into the stadium to witness a true great of the game play against Puskás. Billy's side ran out 5-3 victors on a day when players such as John Charles, Dave Hickson and Billy Bingham turned out to help raise money for the local area. The match was a huge success for local charities and has been immortalised in Liverpool's South Parkway train station, where a plaque commemorates the event, the station now standing where the stadium was on that day. Billy's relationship with Liverpool Football Club was all but cut following his contract expiration in 1961. After his testimonial, the fans had wanted to permanently honour his legacy within Anfield. It was discussed at the annual Board of Directors in 1964 whether to change the name of the Kemlyn Road stand to be renamed. An overwhelming majority wanted it changed to the Billy Liddell stand, but this decision was indefinitely shelved and never came to fruition. Billy Liddell is a name that sits alongside Elisha Scott, Bill Shankly, Bob Paisley, Kenny Dalglish, John Barnes and Stephen Gerrard as the men honoured and immortalised with benches outside the ground. Board of Directors. The Board of Directors illustrated how out of touch they were with the fans and failed to honour Billy correctly in 1964. This was despite the fact that Liddell had been the man who was keeping them in the second division, keeping fans wanting to come to watch Liverpool. Posthumous honour always feels too little, too late. One of the prerequisites for an application to become a director was to obtain shares of it. Following the death of James Hampson, a former shareholder and Liverpool supporter, Billy was left shares in Hampson's will. This again exemplifies the magnitude of Billy Liddell. He could now attend annual shareholders meetings and apply for the position of director. Billy's Liverpool legacy, intelligence and business aptitude would surely make Billy the perfect candidate for the role. Instead, the fruit merchant wholesaler Jack Cross won the vote, the 58-year-old inexplicably pipping Liddell to the job he desired. It was likely Cross was much wealthier than Billy, presumably influencing the decision made. This would have been a great PR move, if nothing else for Liverpool. Their former hero, now on the board, would make perfect sense, as the fact was Billy had great business and financial talents. This is like the efforts Shankly made to join the board after his retirement. He too was batted away by those in charge. It seemed a deliberate act to show players, managers and fans that the board was an exclusive club that they did not want any interference with. boot room. For Liddell and Shankly it was a crushing blow and left them with a bitter taste in their mouths, feeling unwanted and embarrassed, so neither applied to join the board or any employment role through Liverpool Football Club again. Despite this disappointment, Billy remained a fervent Liverpool supporter. He attended matches regularly at a time when the fortunes of the club were turned upside down. Billy and Phyllis would have a meal on each match day in the sponsors' lounge, and Billy would converse with players past and present, his favourite player becoming Ian Callaghan. In addition, Scots were always people he made a real effort with at Anfield, particularly Alan Hansen and Kenny Dalglish. Billy's connection to the football club and boys' clubs meant that he would often be in attendance for cup finals hosted at Anfield. This would not be solely Liverpool FC boys, but for the Liverpool area. Teams such as Sefton Boys and Wirral Boys. Billy would attend the matches and hand out medals and the trophy at full time. Preceding the 1977 Scotland vs Wales match, played at Anfield, Billy was part of a pre-match chat in the famous boot room at Anfield. Alongside him were Ronnie Moran, Joe Fagan, Bob Paisley, Jock Steen and Bill Shankly. Billy was amongst the elite in football as a peer, so respected by so many people, especially those with Liverpool and Scotland connections. The Cop's last stand. April 1994 provided Billy an opportunity to receive a thank you from adoring fans, despite this happening during a period of his life when he was fully feeling the effects of dementia. It was great that this occasion presented itself. Liverpool faced Norwich City on a day known as the Cop's last stand, the last match at Anfield before the all-standing Cop became fitted with seats. Prior to kick-off, the 44,000 supporters in attendance were introduced to Kenny Dalglish, Albert Stubbins, Ian Callaghan, Tommy Smith, Steve Highway, David Johnson, David Fairclough, Joe Fagan, Nessie Shankly, Jesse Paisley and Billy Liddell. The ground was buzzing with nostalgia and appreciation for some of the former greats who had graced the Anfield turf. What this also provided was for the first time that Billy Liddell's name was truly sung in full voice on the Cop. There had been the old banjo, Nickelodeon and Give It to Billy chants before, but not to the extent that his name was sung that day. The simple yet evocative "There's only one Billy Liddell" greeted the Scot as he stepped foot on the pitch. Now in his 70s, Billy was able to fully see and feel the appreciation of a full Anfield for the first time in 30 years. Phyllis had been worried that Billy would not be up for the event due to the fact he was to walk onto the pitch on his own. Billy walked up the Anfield steps one final time and jogged across the turf. He had graced so often before. Tommy Smith was on hand to look after him, keeping hold of him and standing by his side until the families were able to join the ex-players on the pitch, although painfully sad that Billy would not have had the opportunity to appreciate the situation. Special player, extraordinary man. The Liddellpool flag still being displayed at Anfield in October 2020. How many other players are remembered in this way, over 80 years after he signed for Liverpool? Billy served his adopted city as a magistrate for 30 years, and for the same length of time he was involved with the YMCA, the Merseyside Boys Clubs and Merseyside Youth Association. Then there were the years of dedication to his church as a Sunday school teacher and treasurer, as well as his own youth club, He would also travel around churches and schools in Merseyside, providing talks on football and his faith. Billy had jobs, hobbies and pastimes galore, avidly involved in his Scottish dancing with all the Liddell family, all the Hayes Children's Hospital and the Women's Voluntary Service were graced with his work as a disc jockey for them. The Liddellpool's forecast was another in a long, long list. Convicted, they asked the Justice of the Peace for his autograph. There were rumours that Tranmere Rovers had asked whether Billy would be interested in taking the role of manager, but this was not something of interest to him. His mild manner and the lack of job security of a manager meant that he wanted to remain in accountancy work. His working life soon saw him move to Liverpool University in 1962, where he was the assistant bursar to the Guild of Undergraduates. Phyllis also worked in the offices of the university, and Billy got his sister Renee a job in the wages office. Retirement from football normally means a lot more free time, not for Billy Liddell. In the words of his son David, he seemed as busy as he always was with his other interests. Billy merely swapped his 2 days trip football training for 2 days work with Simon, Jude and West, the accountants. Instead of playing for Liverpool, he would now go to watch them. Ironically, Billy was a winger as a JP. There are 3 JPs, also called magistrates, with a presiding justice and 2 wingers. The wingers would have the same responsibility and role as a presiding justice, but they would not have to speak to the court. During his time as a magistrate, fans of Liverpool would be in awe of a man helping to convict them of a crime or issue a fine. After they had been found guilty, they would ask Billy for his autograph. Dementia rears its ugly head. Phyllis was very private over Billy's illness, so not much was known about his health in the latter years of his life. It appears that signs of difficulty remembering and processing events was evident during the Hillsborough disaster in 1989. Billy didn't seem to be able to grasp what had happened. He just sat down and started reading the programme while the disaster was unfolding in front of him. The start of his struggles with memory dated back to the 1970s, and by 1994 at Anfield, the condition was severe enough that the club needed to provide Billy with help, but he was well enough to run onto the pitch unaided. Phyllis stood by him continuously during his illness. She didn't want anyone other than close friends and family to know about his health. A common symptom of dementia is being stuck in the past, and it just seemed that the opportunity for Billy's former teammates to come and see him and reminisce would have been helpful. Because of the bond between Billy and Phyllis, he would rely more and more on his wife, vividly distressed when she was not by his side. Billy's behaviour was changing very quickly. The decline was slow, but still very upsetting, meaning that Phyllis had to move Billy into a home to support her care for him. Heavy leather footballs and dementia. Billy would still watch football, even when his illness was at its very worst, and he had become less verbal. While sitting in his chair watching the match, his legs would kick the ball. Billy's famous 19-inch neck had withered away, and he was now frail, weighing less than 10 stone. The majority of the time he was quiet and vacant. In fact, if it had not been for the pacemaker that had been fitted, he would have died much earlier. This was no quick health battle that killed Billy. He had lived with it for 20 years. He was a family man and would still be able to leave the care home, but he was becoming progressively confused. It has been mentioned as much as possible the links between the head injuries that Billy suffered and the probable links to dementia. Men such as Bob Paisley, Ryan Clough, Nobby Stiles, Jack Charlton and Jeff Astle are among some of the most well known. It seems so cruel that a man of Billy's stature, who had achieved so much in his life, had it all stripped away by dementia. His memories had gone and he had a very cruel end to his life, without the opportunity to thoroughly enjoy a long and happy retirement with his wife. It became inevitable that his life was nearing an end and the family just had to wait for the illness to kill him. Billy was rich in memories but died poor at the hands of dementia. Legacy. The legacy of Billy Liddell will remain much longer than he did, but all stories have an ending. After a long battle with dementia, Billy died in his Mossley Hill nursing home on July 3rd, 2001, aged 79. In many ways it came as a blessing, because he was a shadow of the man he once was. Billy's death certificate denoted that he died of old age, which was something Phyllis was happy about, as she did not want him to be known as someone who died of this terrible illness, dementia. His funeral was held at his church, Court Hay Methodist Church in Higham, and relayed to the large crowds of people outside before the funeral procession moved to Springwood Crematorium in Allen on July 9th, 2001. How Great Thou Art and Amazing Grace was sung, alongside a reading of The Lord is My Shepherd, with donations being sent to the NSPCC. Tributes were also paid to the media, too many to mention. Billy's face was on every news bulletin and in most newspapers. Such was his impact on football. The Mirror wrote, "Even though he never made any money from the game, Liddell will always be remembered by Liverpool fans as one of their all-time greats, a star bigger than any of today's rich and famous players." Everybody could rejoice in the legacy he had at Liverpool. The Cops singing his name during his last stand in 1994. Billy Liddell, who in truth had left them many years before. The great man. Billy Liddell was some player. He had everything. He was fast, powerful, could shoot with either foot, and his headers were like blasts from a gun. On top of that, he was as hard as granite. What a player. He was so strong, and he took a 19-inch collar shirt. In 1966, a scout sent by Bill Shankly watched me play for Golga, who were first in the league, against Millerthorpe, who were second. We beat them 8-2. The scout asked the Golga manager, Barry Hansen, "How old is your number 10? Answer, about 23. Sadly, he's too old for me to take back to Anfield. But please tell him he had a wonderful game." Controlled the field from box to box. About 7 weeks later, I suffered a cruciate knee injury on the Giant Axe in a final which ended my football dreams at 24 years of age. A photograph to study, 6061. As Billy Liddell retired and stepped away from his beloved Liverpool, I have selected the photograph of the Liverpool 6061 squad. And well, many Liverpool fans will be able to pick out players in that photograph. I'm just looking, I think on the second row, I think that's Ian Callaghan on the far left, and behind him, I think that's Roger Hunt. On the third row, Billy is second from the right, while Roger Hunt is second from the left, with Ian Callaghan in front. These two players will be vital to the success of Liverpool under their new manager. The Liverpool fans in the audience will no doubt identify many more players. Quick summary. After his retirement from football in '61, Liddell occupied himself as a Justice of the Peace, bursar at Liverpool University and voluntary worker. Primarily a left winger, his versatility enabled him to play comfortably in all 5 positions on the forward line. He was noted for his strong physique, acceleration, powerful shot, professionalism and good conduct on the pitch. Such was his influence and popularity that the club acquired the nickname Liddellpool. Posthumous recognition included a plaque unveiled in 2004 at Anfield and 6th place in a poll of Liverpool fans conducted in 2006 under the title 100 Players Who Shook the Cop. He was inducted into the Scottish Football Hall of Fame in November 2008. With Liverpool, Billy won a league championship in 1947 and featured in the club's 1950 FA Cup final defeat by Arsenal. He represented Scotland at international level on 29 occasions and he surpassed Elisha Scott's club record for most league appearances in 1957. While serving as a Royal Air Force navigator during the Second World War, Liddell continued his career by appearing in unofficial games for Liverpool and guesting for various teams in the United Kingdom and Canada. 2 great football men of all time. I thought I would end this wonderful story with 2 photographs of the past, Billy Liddell and Bill Shankly, who were Liverpool personified. They both gave this football club a foundation which made it possible to build a Colossus.